Hello guys, welcome back onto the channel. Need for Speed Heat has been out for a couple weeks now. I've beaten the game on the Xbox One X and I'm this close to beating it on the PC as well. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience with the game so far. I know that some of my opinions on the franchise as a whole are a bit unpopular, especially judging from what I've read on YouTube, forums, etc. So let me get this out of the way first. One of my absolute favorite Need for Speed games is Need for Speed The Run. And I know that a lot of you don't like the game. I enjoyed the game a lot. And I really like how high stakes the entire career feel. But I know that some of you didn't like this game. And as a matter of fact, any Need for Speed that came after Need for Speed The Run kind of, I don't know, dropped the quality. Need for Speed, the reboot, the 2012 reboot, features one of the best multiplayer experiences that I've ever had in any racing game. Not only Need for Speed games, but any other racing game franchise. It features one of the best experiences that I've ever had in any racing game. And I don't feel that that game is great though. In Need for Speed Rivals, the 2015 Need for Speed reboot, Need for Speed Payback especially. I know that I did a couple of videos, a bunch of videos on Need for Speed Payback, I think 2 years ago. And I started playing through the career mode. My first impressions were actually positive, but the more that I played the game, the more it dawned on me that that game sucked. And I was kind of hesitant about Need for Speed Heat because of the past track record of Ghost Games as a developer for the Need for Speed franchise. But the game actually surprised me. And not for the reasons you might expect though. Now, graphically speaking, Need for Speed Heat looks great at night. At night it looks gorgeous. I like the neon lights, I like the whole atmosphere they created for the night racing. But for the daytime racing, things start to fall apart. It feels bland, you know, it doesn't feel... I don't know, I can really put my finger on exactly what makes the daytime racing Need for Speed Heat kind of, you know, lame. But it does. And it sounds great, not the best sounding game. And I'm not a huge sound guy, so don't take my word for it. If you're a sound guy, play the game for yourself and make your own judgments. But there are a couple of stuff that I really enjoyed about the game. The whole progression. I think I've said many times before on my channel, in many of my other videos, I don't care about story modes in racing games. I don't care about them at all. As a matter of fact, if they can do without a story mode in racing games, I'm perfectly fine with it. I don't care about it. But Need for Speed Heat has actually a good story. It's not a great story, it's nothing to write home about, but it serves its purpose. It's high stakes, sometimes it's silly, sometimes it's cringy, but it gets you hooked throughout the entire story mode. That's, I think, the most important aspect if a game has to have a story mode. It keeps you playing. And I like the whole progression, how they give you different missions for you to do in the game, how they set up some of the other stuff in the game. But my absolute favorite aspect in Need for Speed Heat are the unlockables. So I've been playing racing games for maybe over 25 years at this point. And one thing that I love about the old-time racing games are the unlockables. Like, you had to grind really hard to unlock certain cars. And some cars were so well hidden that there are many games that I played in the past that I had no idea I could unlock certain cars, just so you have an idea. And these days we don't have any of that anymore. You usually are able to buy the cars via microtransactions, or you can just buy them with in-game money because the games don't make you work for it. Need for Speed Heat, on the other hand, it goes the other route. It goes the old-time route. So you have a bunch of unlockables in the map. You have to collect. You have the collectibles, and the collectibles in this game, they are separated by districts. So you have your boards. You have your, I forgot the name, but it's like, I'm gonna get a lot of crap, but some sort of birds that you have to break. I forgot the name in English, and English is not my native language, but you have your speed zone, you have your speed traps. You have a lot of stuff to collect around the map to get 3 stars in as well. And once you get everything within a certain district, you're gonna unlock certain things that you're not gonna be able to purchase with in-game money or get any other way in the game. So for certain districts, you're gonna get certain neon colors that are not available in the store for you to buy. You're gonna get certain things, mostly vanity items. But once you collect all of the stuff that you can collect around the map across every single district, you're gonna unlock a car. And that sets the theme for the entire unlockables in the game, because for every single activity that you can do in the game, you have a car to unlock. So let's say, for example, if you reach level 50 in your crew, you're gonna unlock a car. If you collect 100% of the collectibles, you're gonna unlock another car, and so on and so forth. So there are tons of stuff for you to unlock. My only concern about the game with this method is whether Ghost Games and EA are gonna make these cars available for purchase via microtransactions or via in-game money down the road. I don't want that to happen, because it kind of waters down all of your effort to unlock the car. So that's not something that I would like to see in Need for Speed Heat, to be honest. Another thing that I absolutely loved about Need for Speed Heat, especially after playing Need for Speed 2015 and Need for Speed Payback, is the handling. Hands down, Need for Speed Heat has the best handling model in any Need for Speed game, in my opinion at least. It's even better than Need for Speed Underground, just so you have an idea of how good I feel that is. Of course, it doesn't feel amazing off-road, but as far as road racing is concerned, it feels great to drive the cars. For the first time in many years, you feel like you're actually in control of the cars. Need for Speed Payback, I usually joke around about the 2015 Need for Speed reboot, because I feel that there should be an achievement or a trophy for that game for anyone who is able to keep your car on a straight line, because it was damn near impossible for you to do that. There was so much steering assist, correcting your steering, that it was really hard for you to keep your car on a straight line for longer than 1 or 2 seconds. And this doesn't exist in Need for Speed Heat, and I feel that it's great, it's awesome. You feel like you're in control of your car. But the downside of that is the drifting. Whereas in the past Need for Speed games, the drifting felt great, on this one, it feels awful. And I'm not the biggest drifter around, I'm not a big fan of drifting either, but I could pull drifts with fairly ease in the past Need for Speed games. But in this one, if you're not a big drifter like myself, you're gonna have a hard time readjusting and getting the hang of drifting. Of course, once you learn how to drift and do stuff in this game, it comes naturally, you're not gonna struggle anymore. But on a first look, it doesn't feel great. And speaking about drifting, Brake to Drift is gone, finally. I mean, there is Brake to Drift in this game, but it's not as quick as it used to be. It's not a way for you to go around the corners quickly. And if you're like me and enjoy actually braking to take the corners without braking to drift, you're gonna be happy that this exists in Need for Speed Heat and is actually a viable way to win races. But there's one caveat to this. The way that the game is set, it's very weird. It has no connection whatsoever. But let's say, for example, you just bought the game and you started playing. You haven't messed with any of the settings, you haven't even looked into the menus. And you started racing. You're gonna notice that there's a ton of steering assists in the game, just like past Need for Speed games. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it's there. Believe it or not, you can negate the effects of the steering assist in Need for Speed Heat by turning the traction control on. So the way you do that is that you're gonna press right on your D-pad to bring up the live tuning menu, and from there you can choose traction control on. You want to have that on across all of your cars if you want to negate the effects of the steering assist. Otherwise, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult for you to keep your car under control. But once you do that, it feels great. It doesn't matter if it's off-roading, it doesn't matter if it's on tarmac, it feels great. But for drifting events, you want to have it off. It doesn't make sense for you to keep traction control on while drifting. Now let's talk about multiplayer, or lack thereof. Now, if you played Need for Speed Payback, you know that game launched as a single player experience only. There was no way for you to compete against other people. The multiplayer was added later, and by multiplayer I'm talking about free roaming around with other people, the all-drive system. That's how they call it in Need for Speed. It didn't launch with that, they added it in a post-launch patch. That's no longer the case in Need for Speed Heat. You can race around with other people. As a matter of fact, as soon as you start the game, you have the chance to either play online or play solo. The problem with this is that the only way currently in the game that you are able to race against other people is by inviting everyone in your lobby. That's the only way. Let's say, for example, you pull up to an event and you want to do with everybody else in your lobby. So you can choose challenge all, and an invite is going to be sent across the map, so any players taking part in the exact same session as you are, they're going to be able to accept the invite and join the race along with you. It's going to be free for all. There's no team or anything, and I'm glad, because Forza Horizon 4 proved that team in racing games doesn't work. But there is the problem. A lot of people don't accept invites, and it's understandable. I get a lot of invites. I don't usually accept them because that's usually not on what I'm there for. I'm there to do the races myself. I'm there to progress through the game, to unlock stuff, to save money, to get the unlockables. So that's not part of the experience. And that's, of course, you could argue that, well, if that's your focus, if that's what you want to do, then there's no point in joining an online session. Just play solo, and it makes sense, all right? But it doesn't make sense for EA or Ghost Games to do that, to be honest. Especially because the game doesn't have a proper online component, and that's what I'm getting at. There is no multiplayer in Need for Speed Heat, and that has me concerned about the future of the game, the longevity of the Need for Speed Heat as a game, as a service. Past Need for Speed games, they didn't have a lot of longevity. It used to be, and I feel that like that's the case again with Need for Speed Heat. It used to be that the type of game where you just play the game, beat the game, get everything that you can get in the game, every collectible, every car, and then you put the game away. And that's my problem with Need for Speed Heat as it is. I hope that EA and Ghost Games do add a proper multiplayer event in Need for Speed Heat, but the very fact that they launched the game without it after having an extra year to develop the game, if you've been following the franchise for the past 10 years, you know the Need for Speed used to be an annual franchise. Every single year there used to be a new Need for Speed game, and for the first time since Need for Speed Payback, they took a year off to have an extra year of development. And it kind of paid off because the game feels great. It's actually one of the best Need for Speed games in the franchise yet. But it doesn't have multiplayer, so what are you supposed to do once you get everything you have to do in the game? Like, there's not a whole lot to do in the game, to be honest. You can beat the story mode in just a few hours, if I'm honest. And the collectibles, they're not that hard to get. It's just a matter of having a quick enough car, or having a spec'd up drift car, a spec'd up off-road car, and you're set. You're gonna be able to get 3 stars on each of the challenges with fairly ease. And the collectibles, they're not hidden at all. Once you drive, there's a certain discovery radius. So once you drive around a certain area, any collectibles around that area, around that radius, are gonna show up on your map permanently. So it's pretty easy for you to spot new collectibles. And the more you do the races, the more you do the drift events, the road events, the off-road events, the story mode, and you do these challenges, the drift challenges, the speed trap challenges, the jump challenges. Once you do all of that, chances are you're gonna be able to have all of the collectibles showing up on your map, so you can collect them at any time you want. So there's not a whole lot for you to do. There's not a whole lot to keep you busy for a long time. So that's where multiplayer could have come in handy. And I don't know, some of the decisions that this companies have been making over this past few years, like the Crew launching without a multiplayer component, like the Need for Speed Payback launching without all drive, Need for Speed Heat launching without a proper multiplayer mode. All of these decisions, it feels like the companies are shooting themselves in the foot. You have Forza Horizon, and I love Forza Horizon. It's my favorite open world racing game. But I can't lie, the Forza Horizon 4 has been a huge mess. So I'm not gonna try to defend that game, because there's a lot of stuff wrong with that game. But at least they have the systems in place to keep you playing. As problematic as the game is, you have stuff to do every single week. And you just don't have that in Need for Speed Heat. That's the main problem that I have with the game right now. Aside from that, it's a great game. You're gonna enjoy it, especially if you're a fan of racing games, and especially more so if you're a fan of Need for Speed as a franchise. You're gonna love the game, you're gonna enjoy the game. Now, I'm not gonna talk about police or any of that stuff, because it's AI. There are ways for you to trick the police to get away from chases fairly easy. As you can see in pretty much any YouTuber channel that covers the game to some extent, you're gonna see any sort of trick, and chances are you're gonna figure some of them out by yourself without ever having to look up a video teaching you how to do that. So police, they're great, they're kind of good. They're not as bad as it used to be in Need for Speed 2015. The police in that game was pretty much non-existent. They were brain dead, to be honest. But Need for Speed Heat at least has a decent police. It kind of gives you some sense of high stakes when you're being chased on a level 5 chase. But it's nothing that you cannot manage if you know where to go, if you know what to do to get rid of the police. So I'm not going to be talking about the police. Now let's talk a little bit about performance, because I play on both consoles and on PC. And before someone comes up and say, oh, PC is better because you can push the graphics. Yes, I know that, but I don't care about that. What I care about more than graphics, more than resolution, more is frame rate stability. It doesn't matter to me if a game runs at 30 or 60 FPS. It doesn't matter, as long as the frame rate is rock solid. So my wife bought me Need for Speed Heat as a gift on the PC. That's where I started playing the game. But I put the game away after a couple hours, to be honest, because the game at launch ran awful on my PC. I mean, my PC is more than capable of running the game at 4K 60 with everything maxed out. I have an 8700K with 32 gigabytes of RAM DDR4. I have an RTX 2080 Ti, and the game is installed on an SSD, a dedicated SSD that I only have my games installed on it. There's nothing else installed on this SSD, so there's no excuse for the game to run as poorly as it did at launch. Frame rates would drop, the game would stutter really bad. Even dropping the resolution down to, I think, 85% on the resolution scale, it still gave me the same results. It was awful. And every time you pulled up to an event and you press the button to start the event, the game would freeze for maybe 3 to 5 seconds. Now, this has been patched, it doesn't happen anymore, but the stuttering still is there, and that's awful. And when I played on my Xbox One X, the experience was night and day. Yes, the Xbox One X version runs at 30 frames per second, but it's a mostly solid 30 frames per second. You don't feel the frame drop as much as it does on the PC. So as a whole, the entire experience felt more enjoyable on the consoles than on the PC. So my hope is that Ghost Games fixes the PC version, patch it up, and make it run as smoothly as it should, especially on such a beefy rig like mine. So maybe your experience at lower resolutions with different graphics card might be different. I don't know. But I hope that Ghost Games fixes the game across the board in any sort of configuration. But that's it. The game is great. I'm concerned about the longevity, but as a package as a whole, it feels great. You're gonna enjoy the game. Do I recommend you buy the game? Yes, if you're a fan of racing game. Yes, if you enjoy Need for Speed games. But keep your expectations in check. Don't go in thinking that this is gonna be the greatest Need for Speed experience that you're ever gonna have. And one more thing that I like to talk about before I wrap up the video. Soundtrack. Now, this is extremely subjective. I know that what sounds awful to me might sound great to you, and vice versa. Tastes are not debatable. Well, some tastes. But I feel that the soundtrack in Need for Speed Heat is really bad. And I understand the directions that they tried to go with the soundtrack in this game, but I don't think it fits the game. Like, for example, Need for Speed Underground had some great songs. That there were even genres that I'm not a big fan of, like rap and hip hop. But I think they fit the theme of the game. They made it feel like you were in the game. The soundtrack kind of lent to the atmosphere of the entire game as a whole. Whereas in Need for Speed Heat, the soundtrack kind of detracts you from it. And it's bad. You know, when I play racing games, I don't know, I think like drum and bass and jazz lounge, like the songs that we used to have in Ridge Racer Type 4, those were the type of songs that really fit in with a racing game. But I don't feel that in Need for Speed Heat. So much so that I turned off the sound. Despite I wasn't even recording any videos for YouTube, but I turned off the soundtrack because I could not stand it. I don't think that it pulls me in. It actually pulls me away from the experience. But that's subjective. Your mileage might vary. You might feel like that it fits the theme. You may feel that it pulls you into the atmosphere of the whole game. It didn't do it for me, but that's all I had to say. But anyways, Need for Speed Heat is a great game. If you enjoy racing games, if you enjoy Need for Speed as a franchise, go ahead and buy the game. You're gonna have a nice time with the game. Just don't expect it to last as long as Forza Horizon or Gran Turismo Sport or Forza Motorsport 7 or any other game that had some sort of live service going on. I don't have high hopes for that. I hope I'm proven wrong. but I don't have high expectations for the future of Need for Speed Heat as a game, as a live service. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. That's actually the very first video that I do where I show my face. I just bought a webcam so that I can record stuff like this. There's more stuff like this that I have planned to come, so keep an eye out on the channel. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more racing game content, share the video with your friends and on your social media. It helps me out a lot and I really appreciate the help. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Bye.